everybody, Fred the Pirate here, and I'm here to do a review of Season 3, Episode 1 of Game of Thrones, which is entitled The Valor of, let's see, The Valor of Davros, I think. Uh, Sorry if I pronounced that wrong, like the medieval fantasy names that give me a little bit of trouble. So if I butchered that, I apologize. But before we get started on the review, I just hope you guys had a good Easter holiday, or if you don't celebrate Easter, that you at least had a good weekend. But anyways, on to the review. So we pretty much in this episode we pick up right where we left off at the season 2 season finale, which is we pick right back up with Sam, the member of the Night's Watch, when he's behind the wall. So we pick up with him. Apparently, the army of White Walkers have left him alone. So when we find him, he is literally running for his life. And honestly, I think that is the most I have ever seen Sam move. Because like he's definitely not really athletic, so like it was almost kind of funny seeing him like just really moving that much because he is hauling a whole lot of ass. And so and then he ends up finding this a dead member of the Night's Watch with his head decapitated. And so I don't know. It's hard to tell which member of the Night's Watch it is because like their body's kind of decayed. So I don't know if they're a significant member or if they're just like a dead Night Watchman. But right after that happens, he ends up getting attacked by a White Walker who I believe is also a dead Night's Watchman. But he ends up getting saved by Ghost, who's John's direwolf, and he ends up so Ghost ends up saving him from the White Walker with and he does that. So he pulls the White Walker off Sam, and then the rest of the Night's Watchmen end up lighting the White Walker on fire. So Sam ends up being okay. Although the commander of the Night's Watch asked if Sam released the Ravens to let them know, get the message to the wall that shit's going down with the White Walkers, and he says no. And since it's been like since a year since season 2, it's like I don't exactly remember them ordering Sam to do that, but apparently they did, and it just slipped my mind. So Sam's in a little bit in a little trouble, but in fairness, I think he was trying not to die with the White Walker, so I'm gonna cut Sam a little slack. But anyway, so the Night Watchmen are heading back to the wall so they can warn everybody obviously about Mance Rayder and his troops, and obviously about the army of White Walkers. So obviously the Night's Watch is going to have a lot to deal with this season. And then obviously after that we cut to John, and he's entering into the wildling settlement, and we can see like this huge caravan of tents. And honestly, their settlements remind me a lot of almost of kind of the way the Dothrakis were, because obviously their settlement seems very nomadic. So like they seem to be using like giant bones, which almost look like mammoth bones. Which it might be interesting to see if there are like mammoths up in there. I guess like if they have dire wolves, I wouldn't be surprised if there were mammoths. But essentially, like they have what looks to be a very nomadic settlement. So I don't know if that is because they're nomadic, or they probably are. But it'll be interesting to see how their lifestyle works. But with that said, Jon Snow enters the wildling settlement so he can meet Mance Rayder and become one of them. And so on the process of doing that, he ends up on his way there. We end up seeing a giant, which that was really cool. And I think it's a Ygritte is her name. I apologize if I'm pronouncing their names all wrong. But she continues to give Jon a little bit of shit about stuff, which she likes to do that with Jon. And he ends up getting pelted by a bunch of children for being a Night's Watchman. So that was interesting. Like, Jon's definitely not being treated with as much respect as he is typically used to being treated. So, obviously, he ends up meeting with Mance Rayder. And at first they do this fake out thing where we see this guy with a red beard who, honestly, when I saw him, he looked a lot like he was related to Ygritte. So, like, I don't know if she's like an uncle or a father, but like the way she looked at him made it seem like they were related. Especially since obviously both of them have red hair, and that's not really a common hair color, amongst people. So it would kind of be weird if you had like two wildlings who happened to be redheads who were in no way related to each other. And I guess like they look a lot like each other. So I'm assuming just the way she looked at him made it seem like he was related to her somehow, and that it wasn't just like that they were two wildlings, but like just the way she looked at him made it seem like he's either I assume that either he's like a dad or like her father, or he's like an uncle or something. But like I can't help but think that he's related. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how they're like, if they're related or if they just happen to be two redheads. So that'll definitely be cool to see. But anyways, with that, Jon ends up talking to Mance Rayder after he gets faked out a little bit by the redheaded guy. And so Mance Rayder asks Jon, like, why are you here? Why did you defect? And Jon tries to give him the runaround, and not blow his cover, but Mance Rayder's not taking any of that shit. So Jon pretty much tells him about his experiences that he had last season with Castor, and Castor sacrificing his male child to the White Walkers, and about how the commander of the Night's Watch knew he was doing that but didn't intervene. So essentially, Jon says, I want to fight on the side of the living. And so apparently that's a good enough answer for Mance Rayder. So it'll definitely be, so that's pretty much what happens with Jon and up above behind the wall. So it'll definitely, I'm definitely interested to see what the Night's Watch is going to do, both with the army of wildlings and the army of White Walkers. And I'm definitely interested in seeing what the wildlings are going to do and what Jon's going to do with them, and how that's going to affect his cover. And I definitely want to see just what's going to happen with the army of White Walkers, because like there was a whole bunch of them, and I know like for season 3 finale, like that was like really cool looking. So I'm definitely looking forward to see what happens with that, because like it would really be a shame for us to have been introduced to them and then like not show up again for a while. So like I said, that's pretty much what happened up north. So then how about we go to what happened in King's Landing. So pretty much in King's Landing, we find out that Tyrion's still pretty much in his shack, and that he plans to have a meeting with Tywin, because he's really concerned about the fact that Tywin hasn't visited him, and that Tywin just doesn't give a shit about what he's doing. And obviously Tyrion's really concerned about the fact that somebody tried to assassinate him that was obviously in the employ of either his sister or his nephew. So he's really concerned about that, and you can tell he's getting really cagey about that. Um, so before he meets with his father, Cersei meets him and she has her Kingsguard. And so pretty much Tyrion and Cersei get into a verbal sparring match, and they kind of just talk shit to each other. And I definitely have to say that Tyrion won that, but he usually always does. Um, like Cersei, like because the thing is like Cersei tries to be mean to people, but like she really can't play like the mind games that Tyrion does. Like, and she makes this crack to Tyrion that she's like you're not half as clever as you think you are, and Tyrion shoots back. It's like, well, I'm still more clever than you, and I think honestly, to me, like Cersei's comment about Tyrion being not as clever as he thinks he is, I think that could definitely easily apply to Cersei because honestly, I think a lot of times Cersei thinks she is way more clever than she thinks she is. And it's like, Cersei, you're just not as clever as you think you are because, you wouldn't honestly if she was more clever than she thought she was, she definitely wouldn't lose to Tyrion in these verbal sparring matches. And honestly, I don't even think that this is one of Tyrion's best verbal sparring matches. But honestly, I think being locked in a little cupboard basically and thinking people are going to kill him, I think has kind of got him off his game. So in fairness, I don't think Tyrion's quite as at his mental A game that he usually is. So with that said, Tyrion ends up meeting with Tywin, and he pretty much Tywin's just sitting there doing business stuff and just completely ignoring Tyrion. And Tyrion's like, are you enjoying your job? Like, how is this going? Like, just getting Tywin to say anything. And, eventually, Tywin answers to Tyrion and he's like, I heard you had a pretty good time being the king's hand. He's like, I gave you, real power and real authority, and I find out that, you've been doing the same shit you always do. Which honestly, to me, like, I feel like that's like real bullshit because, like, Tyrion did a lot of shit as the king's hand. And Tyrion points that out. It's like I helped save the day. I helped do a lot of shit. And it's like here, like, and then like my ass is being shoved in this little cupboard. And it's like, I end up spilling my blood and going out in the battlefield and doing all this shit while we're under attack while your grandson hides up and does bullshit. And it's like, and I'm shoved in a fucking cupboard. And and obviously Tyrion's really defensive about that, as he should be. Like, he did a good job. And, like, even Varys said, you did a really good job. Like, you helped save the day. And it's like, and the thing is the sad thing is, like, that's not going to be remembered by history. Like, nobody's going to remember what Tyrion did. And I think Tywin pretty much comes to him and he's like, do you think I wanted he pretty much says that like only singers and jugglers should get praise and shit. And he's like, do you think that I wanted, a bunch of roses every time I got cut? Which to me kind of just seemed like a dick move because like I don't think Tyrion was at all being an asshole for what he was asking. And so pretty much with that said, Tyrion cuts to the chase and he's like, you know what? I'm your son. I'm your lawful son, and if I'm not going to do anything here. I want Castle Rock because Jaime gave up his right to it when he became a Kingsguard. And so he can't get married and he can't have babies and he can't inherit stuff. So pretty much becoming a Kingsguard is like join the Night Watch. Like you can't do anything. And so he's pretty much like you can't give it to Cersei because she's a lady. So it's like I'm your only male heir and I want Castle Rock. And Tywin pretty much comes back to him pretty much saying like you're just an abomination and it has disgusted me to watch you waddle around, which he literally says that. And and he just pretty much tells Tyrion like fuck no, like I'm not giving you anything. And it's like I don't care what the law says, I don't care what anybody says, I'm not giving you anything. So apparently, like it was really shocking, I guess, to me to find out that Tywin pretty much likes Tyrion as much as Cersei does. And like, to me, like, I get why Cersei doesn't like Tyrion because Cersei is frankly kind of a bitch. But it's like, honestly, I thought that Tywin was a little bit more pragmatic, and had a little bit more common sense. And honestly, I felt that that kind of petty hatred would honestly be above someone like him. And it was weird to find out that no, it's not. Like, so that was really interesting to learn that he's pretty much just as capable of petty, emotional hatred type of shenanigans as Cersei is. And, like, that's really weird. And honestly, I think that kind of makes me wonder, like, what kind of job is he going to do as a hand of the king? Because, like, in last season, it made it seem like he was a very pragmatic person, and that he did whatever he did it because it was necessary and it had to be done, and that, to me, he always seemed like a very pragmatic person. And I guess to find out in this season, like, he's not really that pragmatic, apparently, at least not when it comes to Tyrion. And he's just like, it's like, I don't like you, like, it's like, I don't like anything to do with you and I want you to go away. And I guess I'm definitely interested to see how that plays out, because you can tell when Tyrion walked away from Tywin that he was just like, just fuck you, like, just fuck you, old man. So, and apparently Tywin feels similarly to Tyrion. He pretty much just says, like, fuck you, I don't want anything to do with you. And so honestly, I think it's very obvious that Tyrion has no allies in King's Landing anymore. Like, we knew he didn't have any, like, there was nothing between him and Cersei and Joffrey. I think, honestly, like a lot of people assume that at least I figured he could kind of count on Tyrion. Apparently not. So, honestly, I'm really interested to see what Tyrion's gonna do, because he's pretty much fucked. So, and like Tywin kind of half-assedly said, I'll give you better arrangements for the shit you've done, but I'm not giving you Castle Rock. So it's like, honestly, I don't think Tyrion's situation is gonna get any better than it is anytime soon. So at least not with any help from Tywin. But I think, luckily, we all know Tyrion's a pretty smart guy, so I'm pretty sure he'll figure something out. Um, but I know before he met, after he talked to Cersei, and before he met Tywin, he talked with Bronn, and Bronn pretty much tells him, like, I'm like a sword sells, so it's like, and now that I'm a knight, it's like, I kind of want you to up my pay. And I'm thinking, honestly, I think it's obvious that Tyrion's starting to run out of some money. I don't think it was said flat out, but I think, well, honestly, I think Bronn kind of did say it out loud, because he's like, I'm not getting paid as much as I was. And honestly, like, Tyrion's living in a shack, so honestly, I don't think that Bronn's gonna be on his side a lot, because I think Tyrion's probably not gonna have quite the same money as he did. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And just to make stuff clear, like, I haven't read the books. Like, I just watched the TV show, so I could be completely wrong about this. And, like, don't give me spoilers, but, like, I could be completely wrong about that, and I'm okay with that, because, like, I'm just watching the show. So, based on what I see, I'm just going with that. So I'm just like, honestly, I'm really interested to see what happens with Tyrion. Now, with that in mind, Cersei, besides meeting with Tyrion, she ends up having a dinner party with Joffrey and Marjorie and Loras, and so that's pretty much what she did this episode. And Joffrey kind of gives her some shit, because he's trying to sweet talk Marjorie, and and so he's talking down to Cersei, and Like, and you can tell, like, Cersei's really stung by this because I think she's spent so much time doing shit with Joffrey, and I think she kind of just always assumed that Joffrey would just be super awesome to her, and he's not, and she kind of makes this really backhanded compliment to Joffrey, which is like, you're just like your father. And obviously, and I think it's kind of hinted at like that she's not talking about his biological father, like she's talking about, um, I guess, she's talking about Robert. So, um, and obviously, like we know Cersei hates Robert. So obviously, I think she's getting super pissed at Joffrey, and and Joffrey's getting pissed with Cersei. Like he doesn't want his mom around. It's like he honestly, I think it's obvious that Joffrey thinks of himself as this grown man, and he doesn't want to be have his mom around as much. And so I think with that said, on the with Joffrey and Marjorie, we see them earlier prior to the dinner party, and they're in their carriage thingies, and they're going through a pretty dicey part of town. But Marjorie ends up getting out, and she ends up going to this orphanage, and she ends up talking to these orphans and doing this really philanthropic, really charitable work. And Joffrey seems to sees her do this, sees her do this, and he's kind of surprised about that. But you can tell that he's intrigued and attracted to her about that. So, and obviously, kind of coming back to the dinner party, like he's trying to, he's definitely really attracted to her and sweet talking. And like I really like Marjorie's character because like she's sneaky, but we can see that she's a nice person. Like she definitely knows how to play the game. And I think like and it's not really nice to see that dichotomy between her and Cersei, because Cersei's sneaky, but Cersei's kind of just this very selfish, narcissistic person. Like Cersei obviously doesn't give a shit about anybody but Cersei and who Cersei is interested in. Whereas like Marjorie, like she's sneaky, but she's definitely, we know she's ambitious, but she likes to use her powers to help people. So it's like Marjorie will play the game, but she'll play it to help people out. So it'll definitely be interested to see more of her and more of what she does in the upcoming season. And it'll be really interesting to see how she clashes with Cersei, and how, honestly, how Joffrey clashes with Cersei. And obviously, Loras is there, so it'll be interesting to see how the Lannisters and the Tyrells work with their alliance. But I think we definitely know that Cersei and Marjorie are going to be coming to blows, so that'll be fun. And it'll be nice to see Cersei be challenged by somebody who exists in the same realm that we do, because, like, honestly, Sansa like never challenged Cersei, and I think it's because honestly I don't think Sansa, frankly, Sansa just wasn't in the position to do that, because the thing is Sansa's a political prisoner, and so like she was never in a position to do that. And whereas a Marjorie, like if shit goes south with the Lannisters, like she and Loras can just leave and take their troops and just say like fuck you guys. So honestly, I think she's definitely in a better position to give Cersei some shit. And honestly, she definitely knows how to play Joffrey. Like she definitely knows how to do that. Like she was just playing him like she just was pressing, like she knew every button to press with him, like she said everything and did everything that he wanted to hear, like so she totally played him. And honestly it was really satisfying watching her doing that, because Joffrey's such an asshole, so it's just like we know she doesn't like Joffrey, but it's like we know she wants to be the queen, so it's like she'll say whatever. So that it was definitely fun to watch that. So it'll definitely be interesting to see more of what goes on with those two. Um, now, then with speaking of Sansa, we find her with Shay, and they're out at this dock watching ships leave, and so pretty much they're just wasting some time. And then, essentially they're just playing this game where you make up where a ship goes, and Shay's pretty much doesn't really care too much about this game, and she's like, "Why would you make up stories about something when you know the truth?" And Sansa's pretty much like, "Because most of the time the truth's either horrible or it's boring, so like that's why you make stuff up." And then as they're happening, Peter Baelish, who's at AKA Littlefinger, comes up and he talks to Sansa, and apparently he and Sansa are making plans to get Sansa out of King's Landing without anything happening. And so he tells, but so in the process of doing that, he tells Sansa, "I've talked to your mom," and he words things in a way that it makes it seem like he knows that Arya's okay, which we know that's bullshit because he doesn't know where Arya is, and Catelyn doesn't know where Arya is, and neither does Sansa. So like nobody but Arya knows where Arya is. So I think with that, like he really pumps up Sansa, so they're definitely making plans to get out of there. Um, Although Ross is with Littlefinger, and she and Shay talk for a little bit, and they have like this conversation where they mention it's pretty interesting for women in our position to get a lot of leverage. So pretty much, or so, along that lines, and so pretty much Ross is letting Shay know that she knows that Shay is a prostitute, and that but like Shay's really smart, so she never says anything flat out. But Ross tells her that she tells Shay that she used to live up north near Winterfell, and that she remembers when Sansa was born, and she tells her keep an eye on her and protect her because she's really important. And Shay says, "I know." And then Ross is like, "Protect her from Littlefinger because Littlefinger's an asshole." So it'll be definitely, I think, with that in mind, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens with Sansa and Littlefinger, because honestly, I think Sansa should be careful with Littlefinger because like we know he's creepy, and we know he always has ulterior motives. And the thing is I'm sure that Littlefinger could get get Sansa out of King's Landing, but there's definitely going to be a cost to that. And honestly, I don't know if Sansa would be okay with or even capable of paying that cost. So Sansa should definitely be careful with that. So pretty much that's what happens in King's Landing. So uh, we didn't see Arya, Bran, or Rick in this episode. We do see Robb and Catelyn. So Robb and Catelyn are at this ruined area, and it's not very obvious where they are. I have to say, like at least it wasn't for me. Like if you're like for you viewers out there, if they were like they were here, like it wasn't obvious to me. Like they were talking about Harren Hall, but then they went in there and there was a bunch of dead Norsemen, and Catelyn finds one of her father's bannermen dead. So I don't think it was Winterfell, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't Harren Hall. So I don't know where the hell they were, but they went into this ruined area, and Robb pretty much has his men put Catelyn in a cell for releasing Jaime. So pretty much that's kind of just what happens with Robb uh, and Catelyn this episode. Now we end up finding Davros, who is Stannis Baratheon's right hand man, and we find out that he's been washed up on shore and he's been stranded on this rock outcropping for a while, but he ends up getting rescued by the pirate who was willing to give Stannis his ships. and the pirate, which I forget his name, like he mentions his name really quickly, but I couldn't catch it. Like he mentions to Davos that, Melisandre and Stannis returned back to Dragonstone, which is Stannis's stronghold, and he pretty much tells her that Melisandre it has pretty much been running the show up there because Stannis is just he's not seeing anyone. He's not seeing he's not seeing any of his family members. He's not seeing any of his generals. He's just talking to Melisandre, and Melisandre is just whispering shit in his ears. And on top of that, like Melisandre's just been burning fuckers. Like she's just been burning people right and left and doing shenanigans. So, and he talks to the pirate guy who's his friend, and the pirate says like you should stay away from Stannis because if you go back there, you're gonna get killed. And he pretty much just tells Davos that Stannis is a lost cause, and that because he's a smuggler, that he should just return to pirate life and just let Stannis pretty much rot away, because pretty much Melisandre is in charge of the show, and shit's just going down. So, but he tells the pirate guy, it's like, no, I need to save Stannis because I'm loyal to him, and I need to save him from Melisandre. And so he tells him, like, you owe me a favor, like, drop my ass off at Dragonstone. And so the pirate does, and he ends up confronting Stannis. And pretty much what the pirate says happens to Davos. Like he ends up getting arrested because, like, Melisandre's in charge, and and Davos pretty much says, I don't trust you. And she says, well, if you wouldn't have told Stannis not to bring me, I could have made sure we won. So you don't trust me, so now you're gonna get arrested. So pretty much that's what happened with him. And honestly, I'm surprised. I'm kind of actually am surprised that Davos was so flat out with saying that I don't trust you and you're my enemy. Like I figured that he would have played it close to the vest, and that he would have at least been sneaky about stuff, so that way he could take out Melisandre. But apparently he didn't do that. So honestly, I don't know how long Davos is gonna stay in season 3 then, because like if he's going, like I like his character and I'd like to see him do stuff, but like I don't know how long he has. Like, and I think it's obvious that that Stannis is definitely being manipulated by Melisandre, and that she's the one running the show. And so it'll definitely be interesting to see what Stannis does. Honestly, I think he's gonna lose, and it's just a matter of time. But I think when Stannis does lose, I think he's gonna lose spectacularly, and I think Melisandre's definitely gonna be involved with that. So that'll be super interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Davos, and what he's gonna do, because I'm not really sure what he's gonna do. And then after that, we cut over to Daenerys, and so she's on a ship, and we see her dragons, and they're like big and huge, and like they're the size of dogs now, so they definitely got a lot bigger. But we saw that in the trailers, but it was still cool to see that. So she's talking to her guard, and I totally forget his name, but like she's talking to him, and apparently, she's sounding like I need an army, like that's really important. So she's still kind of talking about that. Obviously they're on a boat, and so we see the Dothraki, and the Dothraki are definitely not boat people. But they certainly should get an A for effort for trying, especially since Daenerys points out the fact like they're the first Dothraki that have ever gone on a boat and crossed an ocean. So like they're not super awesome at it, but maybe the more they do it, the more awesome they'll get at it. So then they land in this city, which is like I forget what the city's name is, and it's super hard to pronounce too. But they land in the city and they're trying to buy slave soldiers, and they talk to the salesman, and he's like trying to sell his wares, and he has an interpreter, a female interpreter, because he and Daenerys talk two separate languages, and pretty much like the whole time he's just talking a whole bunch of shit to Daenerys, like in another language, and like Daenerys doesn't know this, but like he's pretty much just calling her like a Westerner whore, and just being super condescending, and it's like, honestly, I hope something bad happens to that guy because like he was just so condescending, and it's like, man, this is the mother of dragons, and you have the gall to call her a whore. It's like, honestly, I'm pretty sure if she had her dragons, he wouldn't be saying shit. So, but apparently, Daenerys has a lot of problems with the way the slave people are treated because, like, the salesman guy just goes up and cut off this one guy's nipple, and he talks about how they train the slaves, and pretty much one of the way they in their training is that they have to go and kill a baby and not have any ethical issues about it, and apparently this causes a lot of babies to die. Um, so Daenerys definitely has a lot of ethical issues with that, but her right-hand man kind of mentions, they're going to get bought one way or another. Like, either they're going to be bought by you or they're going to be bought by some other asshole. But they're going to be bought by somebody. And it's like, and if they have to be bought by somebody, why not you? Because you're not going to treat them like shit the way they likely would be treated by everybody else. And so that was definitely an interesting point. While this is happening, Daenerys is walking towards this dock, and there's this guy in a cloak following her, but she's messing around with this little girl who has a ball. And so the creepy guy with the cloak tries to jump Daenerys when the little girl gives her a ball, and this wooden ball, and the girl tells her like to open the ball doing this, and so Daenerys does, but Daenerys gets jumped by the creepy guy, and the girl runs away real quick, and the ball opens, and there's this giant scorpion in the ball. So it was obvious that the little girl was planning to assassinate Daenerys, and it turns out that she has like these black teeth, and she makes like this hissy noise, and it turns out that the creepy guy in a cloak actually really wasn't a creepy guy in a cloak, but he was actually trying to help out Daenerys. And I think it was obvious that the little girl is from is obviously an assassin for the House of the Undying back in Karth. So apparently, I guess this season Daenerys is going to have a lot of trouble with people back in Karth for what she did to the leader of the House of the Undying. So apparently she definitely made enemies of them, but like I was pretty much assuming that everything that was going to happen in Karth was pretty much just going to stay in Karth. So hopefully like this assassin thing doesn't last too long. I mean, if not, like she has like dragons and an army, so I think, well, she will have an army, and she definitely had dragons. So and honestly, like, it was that guy's fault, like, the house of that, like, the bald guy with the blue lips, like, that was totally his fault that he got killed with Daenerys because he tried to be clever with shit. So, and it's like, I don't even know why they're going after her because, like, that guy just totally did that to himself. And it's like, they probably should just not. And I mean, and like, pretty much like, Karth, like, has no leaders now. So it's like, I don't understand why they're trying to send out freaking assassins to kill Daenerys because that seems like a really big waste of time and resources for a large city-state that doesn't have a government anymore. So hopefully that won't take too long, but it turns out that the guy who seemed like he was a creepy assassin, turns out that he was the hand of the king to Robert before Jaime was, and that he was the hand of the king for Daenerys' father, and he tells her that he failed her father, but that he wants to rectify that situation, and he tells her that Robert's dead, but Daenerys already knew that. So he says, I want to be, in your Queen's Guard since I served in your father's King Guard, and will you let me do that? And so pretty much, and that's where the episode leaves off. So it'll definitely be, Daenerys seemed really intrigued by this. Her right hand man guy seemed really um, troubled by this because this guy was the hand of the king for Robert Baratheon, so it's like he obviously has some issues with this, which makes sense. Like hopefully Daenerys won't trust someone who shouldn't be trusted that much. So hopefully Daenerys, like obviously Daenerys had a lot of trouble with trusting people that maybe shouldn't be trusted that much. So it'll definitely be interested to see how that plays out. It'll definitely be interesting to see how Daenerys works out having her army and what she's going to do with that. Because I'm pretty sure Daenerys is supposed to stay in the area that she's in for a while. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Daenerys, because especially since everybody's been saying that this is her season, like that this is going to be her time to shine. So hopefully a lot of cool, interesting stuff happens with her this season, and obviously I think with the next season, because I think book 3 in the series, like she's supposed to have done like a lot of cool stuff. So hopefully this will be cool. So that will definitely be interesting. I think with that said, obviously, I want to see more of the stuff that I mentioned being interested in seeing. I definitely want to see what's up with Arya and her two buddies. Like, I want to see what she does, because it's always interesting to see her. And it'll definitely be interested. I'm definitely interested in seeing what's going to happen with Bran and Rickon, and with Jaime and Brienne, because we really didn't see those guys this episode. So it'll definitely be interesting to see what they're up to, and hopefully we'll get to see that soon. I'm definitely interested with seeing Bran, because I kind of want to see what more of his like magic powers and how that stuff works. So that'll be super interesting. And obviously, I kind of just want to see what's going to happen with the continuing conflict between the Lannisters and the Baratheons and the Starks. So that'll be super cool. So I'm definitely looking forward to next week's episode. This episode was really cool. Great cinematography. The outfits are awesome. So, and the writing was interesting. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what happens next episode, since this episode was really nice. So with that said, I'd definitely like to hear your guys' thoughts on this week's episode. Now, I will reiterate the fact that I do not read the books. I just watch the TV show, and so if you are a book reader, no spoilers, because I watched the Game of Thrones reviews to one of my fellow YouTubers, Larry over from Otaku Assemble, and when he was doing his season 1 episodes review, apparently somebody just spoiled the hell out of the book series for him, and so he was forced to have to turn off the comments for the videos, and I definitely don't want to do that. And so I would just ask people very politely, don't make spoiler comments, because it's not considerate and it's not nice. And it's like, I know the books are cool, and to be honest, I plan on reading the books after the TV series. So it's like, I don't want to be spoiled to what happens in the books. And there are plenty of other places on the internet where you can talk about the television series in the frame of having read the books, but this isn't one of those places. So for the book readers, it's like, we all know the books are awesome, but it's like, don't give spoilers to stuff, because no one likes spoilers. So it's like, I don't mind comments, and I want to keep the comments in here, but it's like, if I get spoiled to stuff, I definitely want to avoid what Larry from Otaku Symbol had to do. So I definitely and you should definitely check out his videos, but I definitely want to avoid having to do that. Which unfortunately, like, his hand was forced. Like, you know, people kept doing spoiler comments in his Game of Thrones review, so he had to shut off his comments. And I definitely don't want to do that. And I hope that you guys are considerate to everybody, because not everybody who watches Game of Thrones has read the books. And so don't make spoiler comments, because no one likes spoiler comments, and that shit's not cool. So again, I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are, and I want to hear what you guys think about the episode. Book readers, don't spoil things, because it's not cool. And so with that said, make sure you guys comment, but no spoiler comments. And make sure you guys rate the video and subscribe. And I will see you guys again next time.